Hi everybody, this is Dr. Osborne. Ms. Armentrout told me that you're about to study the First World War in social studies, and she's agreed to let me make a series of videos for you. Today I'm going to talk about the causes of the First World War, or the Great War as it was known then. The war began in Europe in 1914, and at that time most countries were ruled by monarchs, kings and queens. You need to know about four of them: King George V of Great Britain, Tsar Nicholas II of Russia, Emperor Franz Joseph I of Austria-Hungary, and Kaiser Wilhelm II of Germany. These leaders and their nations competed with one another for resources like land. You see, these monarchs believed that the country that controlled the most land and resources would be the most powerful. We can see evidence of this idea in the four long-term causes of the war. What I mean is that although the war did begin in 1914, the reasons for it had been developing for many years. The first long-term cause I want to discuss is nationalism. A simple definition of nationalism would be devotion or loyalty to one's country. That in itself doesn't sound like a bad thing. In fact, patriotism can be very good. The problem is that these countries took that idea to an extreme. They were putting their country's interests above everything else. It was almost as if the nation had become an idol. The next long-term cause is closely related to nationalism. Militarism means glorifying the military and war. These governments that I mentioned saw war as being a way to achieve what they always wanted: control over land and people. It was a way that they could demonstrate their country was the best. For example, Germany and Great Britain had spent an enormous amount of money over the years building up their armies and navies. We call this an arms race. The third long-term cause is imperialism. In order for these countries to gain more land, they had to colonize other parts of the world. You know that the United States was once a colony of Great Britain until we declared our independence in 1776. Well, in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, Europe colonized parts of Africa. They were competing with each other for land and resources like diamonds, rubber, and access to waterways. The African tribes were often treated very badly because the Europeans believed they were inferior due to the color of their skin and different customs. It was difficult for each European country to achieve all of these goals on its own. So the countries formed alliances or agreements that they would help each other in times of trouble. They formed these alliances by signing a series of treaties. The treaties were signed over a period of years before 1914, and they resulted in a system of alliances. And there are two major ones you need to know about. One was the Triple Entente, and it consisted of Great Britain, France, and Russia. Later on, in 1917, the United States would also join the Triple Entente. The other alliance was known simply as the Triple Alliance, and it consisted of Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire. At that time, the Ottoman Empire controlled a large part of the Middle East, but today all that's left of that empire is the country Turkey. When the war began, other smaller nations also joined these alliances, but these are the major ones that you need to know about. By entering into alliance, a country agreed to assist its partners if any one of them was ever attacked. Those are the four long-term causes of the war: nationalism, militarism, imperialism, and the alliance system. Now, let me tell you about the event that set off the war. On June 28, 1914, the Archduke Franz Ferdinand and his wife Sophie were visiting the capital of Bosnia, Sarajevo. The Archduke was the heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne. In 1914, Austria-Hungary controlled Bosnia, and Ferdinand was there on an official visit. But many people in Bosnia did not like the fact that they were controlled by Austria-Hungary. They were what we call ethnically Serbian, meaning they were either born in Serbia and lived in Bosnia, or their ancestors were from Serbia. So they wanted their independence from Austria-Hungary. A group of terrorists called the Black Hand had been planning to assassinate the Archduke when he was visiting Sarajevo. So during this visit, the terrorists tried several times to assassinate him. They tried to bomb his automobile as it passed by several points on the tour. But they failed. Then the Archduke's automobile took a wrong turn and it passed by a young man named Gavrilo Princip. Princip was a Bosnian Serb and a member of the Black Hand. He saw his opportunity and took it. He shot the Archduke and his wife and killed them. And now I'll read you a report that was printed in the New York Times about that attack. So this is what the article says. The first attempt against the Archduke occurred just outside the girls' high school. The Archduke's car had restarted after a brief pause for an inspection of the building when one of the members of the Black Hand hurled the bomb. This was so successfully warded off by the Archduke that it fell directly beneath the following car, and 2 members of this automobile were struck by splinters of iron. The Archduke Francis Ferdinand stopped his car, and after making inquiries as to the injuries of his aides and lending what aid he could, continued his journey to the town hall. There, the mayor began the customary address, but the Archduke sharply interrupted and snapped out, "Herr Burgomeister, we have come here to pay you a visit, and bombs have been thrown at us. This is altogether an amazing indignity." After a pause, the Archduke said, "Now you may speak." On leaving the town hall, the Archduke and his wife announced their intention of visiting the wounded members of their suite at the hospital on their way back to the palace. They were actually bound on their mission of mercy when at the corner of Rudolph Street and Franz Joseph Street, Princip, that's Gavrilo Princip, opened his deadly fusillade. A bullet struck the Archduke in the face. The Duchess was wounded in the abdomen, and another bullet struck her in the throat, severing an artery. She fell unconscious across her husband's knees. At the same moment, the Archduke sank to the floor of the car. After the Archduke and his wife were assassinated, Austria-Hungary blamed Serbia for their deaths. The government sent Serbia a long list of demands that would have been impossible for that small country to meet. Austria-Hungary was being supported by Germany, since they were both members of the same alliance. Now, if Serbia failed to meet these demands, Austria-Hungary promised to declare war on Serbia, and it would have the power of the German military behind it. Serbia, on the other hand, was being supported by Russia. It had a month to respond to Austria-Hungary's demands, so everyone waited to see what would happen. Then, on July 28, 1914, Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia. Russia, however, was the first country to begin to move its troops. When that happened, other countries began to act. It was almost as if dominoes were beginning to fall, and you know that chain reaction that happens when you touch one domino and it falls, and then the next one falls. Well, that's what happened with the countries in Europe. Since Russia had acted, France and Great Britain were bound by their alliance to prepare their armies for action. In particular, Great Britain had promised to protect Belgium, a small neutral country that lay between France and Germany. Great Britain knew that Germany would likely march through Belgium in order to reach France. And by the end of the first week in August, Europe and its colonies were at war. Well, that wraps up this lesson. In the next video, I'll tell you what happened when the United States became involved in the war. See you soon!